Yeah, you know, even in your darkest days, the light will still shine through. Stay focused, keep the faith, and always love yourself. I hear every day a star's born, but not everybody seems to see the light. So many thoughts when I sleep at night, but I feel blessed when I wake up, wake up, wake up. When I wake up, I wake up, wake up, wake up. Yeah.
So I'd like to say good evening, everyone. This is another edition of the Mind of Ivry podcast. And on today, we have a very special guest. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kenyatta Williams, and I am excited to be here. This is my first time on the Ivy podcast, and hopefully it won't be my last.
Most definitely. I appreciate having you on here, and I look forward to everyone hearing your story. And so for everyone that's listening right now, when it comes to social media, you can use it in so many different ways. And for myself, I've noticed that there's been people that are into similar things that I'm into, whether it's, inspirational, purpose driven, business minded, just different things of that nature. And so with Kenyatta, I know that she was on TikTok, currently is as well. And she would always post like inspirational things, but she would always give her own perspective to why she made that post. And for me, I always like to know beyond the surface level. Sometimes people say things to make hot takes or just to get things out there, and then you don't really know, okay, what is the real meaning behind that? Because is this something regurgitated, or is this really who you are, and can you stand by that if people question you on it? So for Kenyatta, she always just will post inspirational things. And for me, I would always put on there, hey, doing a podcast. I'm looking for potential people to interview. And so I decided to reach out to her because I felt like she would be a good person to have on here. So with that being said, can you let the audience know how long you've been on TikTok and what was your initial purpose when you got on there?
Okay. I've been on TikTok, I'm gonna say approximately about 2 years. And the initial reason I got on there is because my children was on there, and it was like they would always be talking about it. And I'm like, well, what's all the hype about? So I'm like, well, let me get on here. And so I got on there, and then they showed me how to do my first one. And I'm like, oh, y'all have created a monster now. And so I got on there for fun initially, but then as I started to explore it more, and I started to realize how the exposure was to many people across the world, from all over the United States, all over the world, and coming from different walks, different backgrounds, different experiences, with business in mind, with, just telling their stories and inspiration. So then at that point, that's when I began to find my avenue on TikTok, and just experience learning that I have a voice and many want to hear it. And so I just started getting on there, and my followers began to build up, and I have some routine, regular people that I follow, and the things that I put out there, I often get feedback that, they appreciate the message, and, I'm just being myself. So that's my initial reason for getting on there.
Okay, that sounds good. And I know you're not, the only person that's like that on there. Of course, with social media, people are going to use it in all different type of ways, but I'm glad that you're using it for something that is more than just yourself. Because the world needs that. We need people who want to be leaders in their own right, and not feel like they have to be filtered through a certain algorithm for people to appreciate who they really are. And can you let everyone know where you're from, and also two significant things about that area, whether it's just places they should go, maybe visit or eat, or something of significance to you from the area you're from?
Okay. I am from Ohio, and we do have a major baseball team. We do also have a major football team and a major basketball team. So we have here in Ohio, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, but I'm not a Bengal fan. I love the Bengals because they're from my hometown, but I go with a whole nother team because that's who my husband went for. But and I'm a rep them till they die. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. But we have the Cincinnati Bengals, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then we have the Cincinnati Reds. And I myself, particularly, I live in the city of Dayton, Ohio, which is in between Cincinnati and Columbus. Columbus is our capital, and I'm in between the two of them, so I kind of get to experience the best of both worlds of Ohio when it comes to city life. And it's a nice place to live. It's affordable. Only thing that we do get winters here. So if you ain't, too partial with dealing with winter, I wouldn't advise. But other than that, the cost of living is great. It's a great place that you can raise a family. You can have both a quiet suburban life or you can have a city life if you want. And the weather, pretty much outside of the winter, we have great weather here.
Yeah, I've been up that way before. I used to work for a moving company, and we used to kind of travel, up throughout the East Coast. So places like I want to say Columbus, and also around in like the Pennsylvania area as well. So just
Okay.
just different areas and things of that nature. So I used to kind of see all those. I guess you can call them blue collar states and stuff like that. So
Uh-huh.
you know, uh, just hardworking and, just appreciating everything that they have because, there are cities that they do have things going on, but they're not like, the other major cities like New York that may have other, things that you can always got something going on. So either way it goes, it's still great that, you're proud of where you're from, you know?
Yes.
Yep. And now I know growing up in that area for you, I know you mentioned about, it being cold and things of that nature. So if you had the opportunity, would you relocate to somewhere where it's warmer year round or you're just happy where you're at?
Oh, absolutely. Well, at one point in time, I did relocate and I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. Um, and that was that's been part of my journey and my mission. So, me coming back here, that's part of my story. I feel that, God drove me to come back here. I was driven to come back here, based on, my husband's medical conditions and things of that nature. But I loved it there in Charlotte, North Carolina. We lived there about 3 years. And currently, I have three sons. My youngest is going to be a senior this year, and he's going to graduate. And I do have the possibility on my mind to relocate and move. And Texas is one of the states that I'm thinking about going to. My best friend lives there. She's been there about 5.5 years, and I go and see her maybe like twice a year, and I really like it. And so, yeah, I am really considering leaving because, home is always going to be home. So I can always come back here. If, for whatever reason, where I leave and don't like it or, things don't work out as planned, I can always come back home. So definitely I'm exploring that opportunity.
Yeah, and it's great that you're giving yourself that chance to do that. Continue to spread your wings. Even though, like I said, you did relocate to Charlotte before, and just to kind of touch on the Charlotte part of your life culturally. Did you see any major differences as far as from where you're currently at now and then in the Charlotte area?
Culturally, I did. In Charlotte, if you are a young adult who's looking to have a nice life for entertaining purposes, to get out and explore and just have fun, it was definitely a great city for that. It definitely was a little more diverse than where I'm from. In the neighborhood that I lived in, we had Latino, Mexican, white, black, you know what I mean? So it was a little more diverse in that aspect. So yeah, I did experience some things and it definitely, showed some different opportunities to me and to my children to, experience life outside of where they were born and raised.
Okay. Well, like I said, for anybody that's, wondering how it is in that Charlotte area, there you go. So, and then you can add on to it if you actually, maybe go there and visit or if you're considering looking to stay there. So, that's definitely, I'm glad that you're giving that insight because some people never travel outside of where they're from. They're like, hey, I'm from here. my roots are here and this where I'm going to be here forever, and they have a
Yeah.
certain they have a certain mindset about every other place. And then when you are able to, let me just take a chance. Let me just go on a trip and just see. And I feel like it brings a lot more substance your way as far as knowing how to deal with other people, knowing how to adapt. And I think that probably is one thing that has helped you in life.
It definitely did. I tell you one thing, if you've never moved outside of your area and you decide to do that, it will definitely show you what you're made of. Because our move there was truly a move of faith. And so, that in itself is a whole story. So if you've not moved anywhere and you want to, when it will show you what you're made of and what you're capable of, and it'll really allow you to explore more about yourself. And so that was one of the things that it allowed for me to do, my husband to do, as well as for my kids, because we have those memories and we have that experience that now we can share and we can talk about, and it'll help them. It helped my kids to not be afraid to try new things. So it definitely is an opportunity that if you're considering leaving where you're from and moving somewhere else, do a little research and find out what that place offers that, you might want to experience, and take a chance.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Now, as far as your early upbringing, how was life for you as a child? Were you an only child? Did you have both your parents in your household? How was that family dynamic for you growing up?
Ooh, my childhood. So I was an only child till I was about 7. And then my mother had my brother, and I have a biological brother and sister by my mom. Then I have a brother and sister by my dad. My parents were not together. And I'm an open book. So when I'm talking, I am not afraid to say, who I am and where I come from. I was a product of a marital affair. And so my father, was not in my life. He paid child support, so he was, responsible in that sense, but he wasn't a part of my life to, provide me with that guidance and love and nurturing and all that stuff that a man and a father should do for a young lady. So I grew up with my mom as a single parent. And, my mom did the best that she could. She provided with love and nurture to me, and my brother and my sister. And for the most part, we had a very healthy lifestyle, healthy, normal growing up childhood. Got to, we had a family, pretty nice size family, parents, my grandparents rather, and my aunts and cousins and things of that nature. So didn't feel as if I was missing out much, with my father not being in my life. As a kid, it's not till you become older when you're able to conceptualize what when you see what other people have and what other people are receiving, and when you're able to process why a father should be there and things like that, till that stuff started to come in. But as a kid, I was totally happy and cool, and had a normal childhood.
Okay, okay. And that's something I feel isn't always the end story for a lot of people. They grow up maybe in a broken home, or they grow up, as the child of two people that, were in a situation that wasn't going to be something long term. It was, maybe something just spur of the moment. And for you to, be able to kind of grow and navigate through life and not let quote unquote unperfect situation turn into something that you could use and you could help to teach other people and things like that, because um childhood trauma is real. Some kids don't get enough love, they don't get enough guidance, and they grow up in this world and they have kids and they just kind of, give them what they didn't have, and then the cycle continues. So you sound like somebody that you want to see the best for yourself. You're going to do the best for yourself, but also make sure that you can kind of give that back to your loved ones as well. And you just have an understanding of what it was, and that, hey, you don't have to carry on that same tradition if it was something that didn't work. So that's saying a lot.
Absolutely. I definitely took what my childhood was like and the things that I wish were different, And I made the promise to myself to make them different for my kids. And so, me and my brother and sister, we all had different fathers. So my mom was a single mom to 3 kids with 3 fathers. And I seen what that was like. And I said, I'm not going to do that for myself. I'm going to have all my children by the same man. And I want him to be my husband because I want him to promise and, show me that he's there for me and those children. And that's one of the promises that I did keep to myself. I did marry my high school sweetheart, and all 3 of my sons are by my husband. And we were together until he passed away. And so that's one thing that I can say from my childhood that I did learn that I wanted differently and made sure that I did make a decision and a choice for myself to provide that for myself.
Okay, I definitely got that. Now, as far as being someone who had kids, and as far as having a career, were you able to balance like the career life and also having kids as well and being married?
Oh my God, let me tell you. So, okay. So being that I grew up with a single mom, my youngest sister, my mother ended up marrying my youngest sister's father, who was not a good man and wasn't, a provider of the household. So in high school, I decided, that I was going to work a job and, try to finish school. Well, working became more of a focus and a priority. So I dropped out of school, right? My senior year, right? And I decided, that work was more important. Why? Because, I needed to provide the bare necessities for myself as well as help my mother, pay bills and things of that nature because her husband was a substance abuser. He was a drug addict. So, and I was the oldest. So that ended up, resulting in me dropping out of school. But I went back, got my GED, started working jobs, and I'm like, okay, this ain't gonna cut it. And so I'm like, I'm gonna have to go to college because, this ain't gonna do. And so that's what I did. I went to college, and all while I was in college, I worked a job, was a mother, got married, and had when I started college, because I didn't start right away, I probably started at age maybe about 23. But when I started, I got married and had 2 children, all in the process of being in college, getting my degree. So yeah, that getting the education was something that, I valued and I saw was a way to make a better life for myself. And I had to, it was many a times and many a days where I struggled with it, didn't want to do it because it was hard. You know what I'm saying? It was, I went to a HBCU, Central State University. Shout out to them for God for Central for State. And I didn't stay on the campus. I had to drive back and forth. And so it would take me about 40 minutes to get to school every day. And it would be days where I would want to quit, and my husband would say, quit for what, Kenyatta? Where will you go from here? You started this for a purpose. What was the purpose? What's the reason? And he finished the year that I started, he graduated from college. So we were each other's supporters and helped each other through, we basically grew up with each other or helped each other grow up. And so working and going to college and having a career, all that has, been a plight that, nowadays I look at young people and, I'm so, I'm flabbergasted that, some of the things that people say, it's too hard. And I'm like, man, if I could do it, if I did that, I know you most certainly can do it. But it was definitely not an easy task, but my faith, kept me going. And, the fact that I wanted more for myself and I knew that nobody was going to give it to me, I had to work for it. So yeah, working and going to school and having a career has been a juggling act, but it's definitely been something that I've been able to do. And also, it was something that I knew that I needed to do for my kids to show them.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be something that they can take with them everywhere that they go, because having, both their parents in their life and being able to instill in them that, hey, you don't give up when it's not favorable for you or the odds may be against you, you can still keep pushing and pushing, because when you do that, you grow so much internally.
Mm-hmm.
You're showing yourself, hey, I can do this, and not just take the credit for yourself, but know that there's a higher power that is giving you that is being able to download these things into you, so you can be creative, so you can be able to really see the light and see that it's more to life than everything that's going wrong, because that's just it's a balance, right? We have the sun, we have the night, we have good and bad. It's just the way the world is made up, but it's just you got to take what you have and work within that. And I also feel that having parents like they have, it made an impact on them, because they can see, hey, you can have a successful black family, without it being okay. Well, every black family always has maybe a broken relationship, or is some child, it's always some drama or some trauma, some stuff going on. So that is something very impactful that we for sure need within our society, and to show that we can carry this on. Now, I know you mentioned about your husband; he's no longer here, and my condolences on that. As far as for
Thank you.
with your husband, when did you know that he was the one for you? Because I know you also mentioned he was your high school sweetheart. When did you know he was the one for you? And as a man, what really made him stand out among other guys that possibly could have been talking to you or wanted to talk to you, maybe around the same time he wanted to get to know you?
Wow. So, what made me knew that he was the one for me? And when we were in high school, he was a pretty popular guy, and a lot of girls liked him. Even some who were my friends liked him because he was a real popular, cool dude. And as a freshman, I had a boyfriend, and it wasn't a good experience as a freshman because there was a lot of young ladies who didn't like me because of the guy that I was dating. So I'm like, I'm never gonna date nobody I go to school with anymore. Once I broke up with that young man. And so he would try to talk to me, and I'm like, nah, because I didn't have a good experience, with dating somebody at the same school. So I really wouldn't give him the time of day. And after it was the year that I was supposed to graduate, he and I would run into each other at a gas station. And so he again approached me and tried to talk to me. So I called him, and we began to talk on the phone, and then we had a date, and we would go out and have fun together and things of that nature. And at the time I was 17, getting ready to turn 18. And so I had never had a birthday party, right? Because my mother was a Jehovah's Witness, right? So we didn't celebrate birthdays when I was a kid. So he had talked to my mom about having me a birthday party because this was something that he and I had shared. I had never had a birthday party, and his family always celebrated birthdays and stuff. So my mother was okay with having me a birthday party. So he planned a whole day for me, picked me up that morning. We went out to breakfast. And then we went shopping. Like, he kept me out all day. And finally, when he brought me back home, I came home and it was kind of dark in the house. And I'm like, why is it so dark? And then my mom had all these people here, friends and stuff, and they would, surprise me. And I had a cake and everything. And he helped plan that. And so that is when I knew, like, wow, he made something happen for me that I wasn't expecting. But it meant that he knew that based on our conversation, how I just never had a birthday, and how he wanted so much for me to experience that he helped my mother plan that and do that. So that made me know, like, okay, he's definitely not a selfish person, and he's looking out for my best interest and wanting to do something and making something special for me. And like I said, I'm only turning 18 and he was 20 at the time. So that's kind of one of the things that I knew. And then when we would have conversations, he would be very open with me to the point where he would share some deep and personal things with me. And I just felt that connection. And so that's how I knew, that you know what I'm saying, he was the one for me, because it wasn't, you know what I'm saying, it wasn't just, the typical young teenage relationship where it's, oh, you cute and, want to, basically get close to you, get next to you because they didn't get what they want or whatever. Like, he actually took time to get to know me and wanted to, show me some different things about, you know what I'm saying, himself as well. So that's how I knew that he was the one for me.
It sounds like he was someone that was genuine and someone that wanted to show you by actions instead of just wanting to whisper sweet nothings into your ear and have you all um so into him, and then at the same time bring nothing to the table. And the conversation part you mentioned about being able to talk about life and be introspective, I feel like that's a lost art in today's society, especially when it comes to dating. A lot of people talk about, they can't find somebody that they can be themselves around or talk to. But when you really break it down, some people aren't really looking for that. They're just looking for something kind of like the music they listen to, something fast food, something just
Right.
seasonal. And then when that runs its course, now you're ready for the next trial period with someone else. And it's like you had something that was way more than that. Then y'all were blessed to be able to have 3 sons. And as far as for your sons, were they able to really, you know, understand who he was? Like, was he in their life long enough for them to be able to kind of really get a great idea of who he was just as a man and as a father?
Oh, absolutely. So, my husband died. It will almost be 7 years in August. So my youngest son at the time was 9. My middle son was 14, and my oldest son was 19. So yeah, they definitely had him around in their life to be able to know who he was and to be able to identify with him as a man and as, his character, his morals and values and the things that he stood for. And they were definitely daddy's kids, daddy's boys rather. I would joke with him and I would tell him, like, if we ever divorce or separate, I'm prepared to be the weekend parent because I know how much they love their father. So yeah, they definitely knew their dad and knew exactly who he was. And they had, definitely some great experiences, with their dad. And, they definitely have a lot now to hold on to, and a lot of memories that they can remember. And, and I don't mind even now to this day. I talk with them about their dad and share things with them when they're ready, and, have some of those conversations with them about, the things that their father stood for when they are ready to, ask those questions. One long ago, my middle son, who's 21 now, had shared with me how, he's like, Mom, I'll be asking my uncles and stuff, to tell me the stories about their father, them, about my father when they was young. He was like, because I just like to hear them. I like to know, I just like to know that stuff. And so, it was just interesting that, he opened up to share that with me. And so I just kind of shared some things with him that I remember, from our younger days. So yeah, they definitely had a great opportunity to get to know their dad and have some good experiences and great memories of their father and who he was.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that makes a huge difference having a positive male role model who doesn't have to, show his bravado just through, quote unquote his bark. It's just through his actions and being somebody that can help lead the family with his better half. It doesn't have to be a dictatorship. And that sounds like y'all had a loving home where everyone was able to be themselves, but it sounds like it was structure there, and there was a lot of conversations and a lot of teachings, and that's what we just need in general. As people, we need to be able to understand each other and figure out what really works, and it's great to see that y'all had that and y'all made the most of that with this time here. Now, for women that have lost, a significant other, or people in general that have lost, male, female, who have lost a significant other, what would you say to them as far as how to possibly cope, or maybe if there's any groups or, websites that you could recommend to them as far as when you lose somebody like that?
Okay. I'll tell you what I personally did. What I personally did is I had therapy. I had individual therapy. I did group therapy with like-minded people, people who had lost family members, loved ones. And then at the time, when my husband passed, I had came across, it was called a widows support group. So it was for widows. And so when I say that made a huge difference, in my life, being able to be around people who understood where I was coming from, and me to be able to understand where they was coming from. And I hate to say this, but that is a time in your life when you in experiencing something like that, when you misery do love company, when you really do want the company of other miserable people. Unfortunately, it do find comfort because you want to be around people who truly can relate to you and you can relate to them. So I did participate in those groups. I definitely increased my faith, my relationship with God, the Most High. I began to get more into my word and built my relationship, and my prayer life became stronger. I began to journal. I wasn't a writer, prior to then, but that really brought the writing out of me. And, man, it was so beneficial because I could pour out my feelings and my thoughts at any point in time about how I felt. And I would do it. I would listen to a podcast or listen to a sermon from a minister or something. And then I would take a point of whatever grabbed a hold of me from it, and I would just go and write about it and pour out my feelings about it. And that really helped me. Something else that I did, which kind of, it really kind of brought my personality to where I am now, to being open to talking to people, meeting new people, not afraid to be, on camera, on video or anything like that. I began to just get on Facebook at the time, and I would talk about what I was experiencing, what part of grief I was dealing with, what I was learning about grief, and I would share it on there. And it began to be something that other people started to listen to, and other people started to come to me, and say, "Hey, I'm so glad that you do this because I've been dealing with this and I really didn't know what to do." And so it just began to be something that was inspirational to other people. And so that was some of the things that I do. So I would encourage people to definitely get involved with a counselor. And most people, especially our culture, our community, don't, think, "I'm not going to talk to no therapist. I don't want to talk to a therapist." And I highly recommend that, that's one of the things you do, because the thing is, a therapist don't tell you what to do. They help you to figure out what you want to do based on what you already know what's right or what you already know to do. So every person is not going to be the first therapist you talk to may not be a match for you. You know what I mean? It's just the same as when you get a doctor, when you get a regular doctor, when you go to that doctor, you know what I'm saying? You may not vibe with that doctor. So you have the right to go get another one. So it's the same thing with a therapist. And I also used to like to use this example. When you have heart problems, you go see a heart doctor. When you have, if you have, problems with bones, you go see an orthopedic. When you have problems with your mind, mental, that's what you go see. You go get a therapist, you know what I mean, to help you with that. So I recommend people do that, and being a part of even a group, if you know what I mean, if you feel more comfortable talking amongst other people, being able to be in part of a group. So I always recommend people to reach out. Here in my area, hospice, believe it or not, gives free therapy counseling services. And so you think, hospice, that's, you think, oh, that's only for people dying. Well, people who's lost their loved ones still need help and still need support. So they offer that, and it's free. Even if your loved one didn't receive hospice care for them, they still offer that as a free service. So that's will be my recommendation. What people can do, get books. If you can find a book based on somebody who has lost a loved one, you can do that. And just so happened that when I was in part of this widows group that I was in, there was a person in that group who had lost her husband and her daughter. And so she began to write a book about that. And so now she's got some books for children. They were children books that she wrote. So she's an author of children's books because she took on her daughter's children to raise them when her daughter passed. So she that was what kind of helped her. So it's just all kind of different ways, but you just got to be willing and open to step outside of your comfort zone and know that, people are out here really willing to help people, because it's a terrible thing to have to deal with such a loss and only dealing with it by yourself. And me as a mother, I was grieving not just for myself, I was grieving for my children as well. It was very important. I knew that, in order for me to make them to be help them to be the healthiest young men that they could be, I had to be the healthiest mom I could be. And so some other things that I started to do, I started to get more into my health, and cared a little bit more about my health, and started to exercise and go walking. And that made a difference, what I'm saying, and how I felt internally, externally. So these would be my recommendations. Getting into things, find some things. If you got a hobby of something, get into it, get into a hobby if you have something you like to do, but don't allow yourself just to sit up and stay in your head and stay in your mind about how you feel and not find healthy alternatives and outlets. A lot of people turn into self-medication and start to use drugs and alcohol, sex, just different things to relieve that stress and that tension and to get those feelings and get that pain out. But my encouragement would be to find healthy alternatives, because the one thing about grief, it is a lifelong journey. It does not, people say it get easier. No, you just learn how to deal with it better, as time goes on. I still have my days and my moments where feel the same. I feel the pain that, I felt when it very first happened, but I've learned how to move through it and move past that pain a little bit more with ease. So, grief, it is not something that's going to go away. So you might as well learn how to deal with it in the most healthy way you possibly can, so that you can, continue to live a life, because that's the thing that most people forget. Your grief is pain that you have, love that you have rather, for someone who can never, give it back to you anymore, or never, express that love back to you. And it's an honor and a privilege to have such love for somebody, that you can still feel that love for them in their absence, and, not them not being there. But the thing that most people don't remember is you are still living. So you have to live your life, and you have to do it in a way that you feel like you're alive. So that would be my recommendations.
Yeah. Hey, and for everyone listening, I know that, she really detailed a lot. So, you can always, replay this as much as you want to really get all that good information. But I'm glad you are so, open and honest about, your life and, dealing with grief and, having kids that also, need their time to talk with somebody to get their feelings out as well. Because sometimes we feel like, oh, well, let's just handle it, all in house. And sometimes you need to kind of go outside of the home to make sure you're getting the right people to help you out with what you got going on. People who have degrees and are certified in what they're doing versus somebody that might have a skewed viewpoint and may not be able to fully understand or hear a person out on what they're, how they're feeling. Now, as far as people who have inspired you, whether it's family, whether it's people in entertainment, do you have two people that have inspired you, and can you give reasons to why like those two people were an inspiration to you?
Okay, yeah. One person in particular, if you're aware, if you know who she is, her name is Tabitha Brown. And Tabitha Brown is what you would call a self-made person. She is a vegan, and so she started out, she became more popular. She began to build her fan base because she was a vegan. She had some health issues, and so she decided that she was going to become a vegan to see if that would help. And so that's how she began to become the person that she is now, the known person she is now. And she would cook on live on Instagram, and she would just, be herself, and she would just talk about what she was, cooking. She'd just be making up recipes on her own. Nobody that she knew was a vegan, which is something she was willing to try. But when I first came across her, she was sharing a story about her mother who had passed away. Her mother had died of ALS. And her mother and her had a conversation during her mother's illness about her mother saying that, when she died, what she would leave her, how she would let her know that her presence and her spirit was there. And so she told her she would leave her dimes. And so when I heard her tell this story, that intrigued me to really start following her more and listening to her more, because me myself started to experience the same thing with my husband. So if you go look it up, a dime represents a loved one telling you that they're near and they're by, and that, I'm saying, they're with you. And, I don't know, dimes wasn't something that I would find on a regular basis. You find a penny all the time. Every once in a while you might find a nickel, but dimes, that's not something that was too common. And so when I very first started to notice, it was maybe a couple months, maybe about 2 months after my husband passed, I had found a couple of dimes, and I'm like, this is really strange. Like, I have never really found dimes before. So that's when I went to go look it up. And once I looked it up, I'm like, this is interesting. So I had said out loud to my husband, Dante, if you sending me these dimes, send one to me in a way that I cannot dispute and refuse to say that it's coming from you. And so one day I went to go pull out my bundt cake pan to make a cake, pull it out from under the cabinet, and I just grabbed it, and I heard this spinning sound. Looked in the pan, and it was a dime spinning around. So I just laughed and cried out at the same time, because I'm like, yeah, you knew I would bake a cake. And above that cabinet where the bundt pan was a silverware drawer. It wasn't like it was a junk drawer where money could have fell out. I ain't had no little kids in my house, so it wasn't like little kids was, running around putting stuff where it shouldn't be. So it was like nothing else could make sense of that except for him sharing with me, I'm here, I'm with you in spirit. And so when she told that story to me, that's when like I just began to follow her and listen to her. And her spirit is so beautiful. So if you're not familiar with her, Tabitha Brown, go look her up. She's on Instagram, Facebook. She's got, little kid shows. She done made some cookbooks. She got clothes and food and Target. The girl is doing it. She retired her husband from being a cop, so that he could live his life. She's really doing the thing. And it's just because she's been herself and her faith. So she really is one of my biggest inspirations. Definitely. So she's one. Sarah Jakes Roberts is one that inspired me. If you don't know her story, I'm not going to get into all of that, but, just her power, as a woman, and her ability to, just be open about herself and her life. And so anytime I come across people like that who, are genuine, tell their story open about who they are, when you your real self and you really who you are, that's how you inspire people. And that's how you get people to really, to open up and believe and desire to make a change for themselves, or to, want to just, see themselves in a different light because they see you as a person that, they can relate to. So but Tabitha Brown is definitely my number one. Sarah Jakes, that's another person that I'm inspired by. I like Viola Davis, because she's a really powerful woman, and she's very open about her story and being in the business of Hollywood as an actor, a Black woman, and her trials and tribulations. So I love anybody that that has that type of mentality and that type of spirit.
Yeah, I've heard of Tabitha Brown. I think a lot of people, if they haven't heard her like talk about her life, they have always remember her smile and that her hair, that's always like her signature.
Oh yeah.
She's like that auntie that's like always wants you to come over, what I'm saying, and just hang out with her and just talk about life. So
Hmm.
that's definitely cool. And, you come across as somebody that you really believe in affirmations and having the right energy. So as far as like numbers are concerned, do you have any beliefs in like the power of like numbers, whether it's, certain, a certain, sequence of numbers, or do you have a specific, numbers that you yourself, you just like to see or you utilize, and it's just something that it does something for you?
Oh, absolutely. So I had my favorite number and I got it tattooed on my arm. And it's in honor of my husband. By the way, his name was Dante Williams. Our number was 101, and it represented one and only one. And now I think about him sending me dimes, and I could tell you countless stories about how I done found a dime, and how, a dime just showed up, you know what I'm saying? Like, how in the world, why, you know what I mean? That just don't make sense. One time I was on a girls trip and we were in Nashville, Tennessee, and they have those, most cities got those scooters, electric scooters you can get on and ride around. So we decided that we was going to get on the scooter. So they everywhere and they just all over the place. So you just, unlock it with your credit card and you pick one. So we all just grabbed one. So the one I unlocked and picked, once I unlocked it and kicked it back, moved it, guess what was right under it? A dime. So, how close can you get to 101 then with a dime? So I'm very into, connecting things and believing that everything has meaning, and that everything I'm saying is correlated or connected together. There's something called life path numbers, and it's a way that you go about figuring out yours, how your number is. You can Google it; it'll tell you the steps. But it goes along with your birthday, the numbers in your the letter amount of number letters in your name, and things like that. But my life path number is 8. And someone who has the life path number of 8 is a person who brings balance. And I feel that in all relationships that I have, that's what I am. I balance out the relationship. I balance it out. So yeah, numbers, I'm very good with, very significant with paying attention to the numbers. I think your brain remembers things based on numbers as well. It files things away on numbers and dates and things like that. This is something else that I would encourage somebody who's on the path of a journey of grief right now. There are significant dates that may be connected to your loved one that passed. And your brain will not forget that stuff. You might, but your brain may not forget it. And so you may find yourself having days and moments where you just don't feel right and something is off. But if you really think hard enough, that date might be centered around something significant. We always think about birthday, Christmas, holidays, and things like that. But for example, for me, I can remember that, there was a time where I just couldn't quite figure out why I was feeling a certain type of way on a certain day. And when I happened to look at my Facebook memories, I had made a post that day, and that day was the day that my husband had this major surgery because he needed a heart transplant. That was the cause of his death. And that was the day he had this major surgery for in preparation to just get him listed to have a heart transplant. And so when I seen that, I'm like, wow, okay, this is what my body and my mind is remembering, you know what I'm saying? Because that was something that was big and significant and traumatizing in a sense because it was a huge deal. So yeah, your mind keeps up with numbers that are connected to certain things. We only think about the things that are obvious, but your brain will remember. You know, there's a book called The Brain Keeps the Score, and that's the truth. So yeah, I am big on numbers. But 101 is my number for one and only one.
Okay, okay. Like I said, I'm glad you shared that. I mean, I've seen people who speak about numbers and just, why they have them, why they, as you mentioned, have it tatted on them or just on their car, just stuff like that. It means something to them. Sometimes it's sentimental, sometimes it's for whatever other reasons. But like I say, I thank you so much for not only being on here, but being yourself even when, others may not know what's going on with you. You seem like somebody, you have conversations with yourself, have conversations with God, about things going on in your life. And I think that's why when you project your message out onto the screen, people can really gravitate to it. And they, of course, respect and appreciate that because it could be something that at the moment in time they aren't able to do. So, that in itself is very powerful. And before we close out, I would like to ask you, with everything going on in the world and just, from opinions to hot takes to, the grief to a lot of injustices, what would be a message if you could be on a grand stage and give a message to the world, what would your message be?
If I could be on the stage, grand stage, man, I could say so much, but if I was on this grand stage to give a message to the world, I would really want to encourage people to don't take so much time on focusing on what already has happened. And don't take as much time focusing on what you hope to happen. Put more time and more energy on the right now. Be present. What's happening now? What's going on in your life right now? What's happening in the world right now? Because our past, we can't go back and undo. Our future, we cannot predict, but our present, we can be in. So that would be what I would tell people right now. Be present, be in the now. Because the world we live in is such a fast pace, that people are, you got people get hung up on, and not that anyway, things that has happened in the past is not important, because it truly is. And not that the future isn't important, because what we do now is a great determination of what the future is going to be. That's why you got to be focused and present on right now.
Stand in the present. Exactly. Exactly. And that's something for me, I've, still, managing and handling as far as being in the present. Don't carry around your transgressions or, your problems. Just like baggage, you know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
in your
And that's
own
one of
words,
my quotes.
yeah, no,
Talking about
baggage coming
baggage.
from the airports, not heart. So yeah, and I know you said you're not like a poet or and all that, but you definitely have your own takes on life that could be compiled into books, songs, films, things of that nature. And I just want to say, I hope that you continue your journey and that your family, and everything that they want to do in life, they're able to prosper and be blessed as well. Just off of the things that you're doing, the way you're living your life, and also just being a pillar and for your community. And I think that's a very important thing as well. So is there anything else that you would like the audience to know, or ways they can find you?
Yeah, sure. They can find me I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, and I'm on Facebook. And all of that, we're gonna compile all of that and add that to the podcast, correct? Or do you
That is
want me to
correct.
put them? Okay. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
you can.
am on all three of those platforms. And
Yeah,
I'm by
and
my name. I don't have a you know, many people have names that, saying it's not, necessarily their name. No, I am who I am. I'm Kenyatta Williams. So, you can find me on all my platforms by Kenyatta Williams.
And for everyone listening, like I say, I will have this on the bio, as far as on the description for the YouTube version, and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and wherever you're listening to this now, it'll be on there as well. You just go into the description and you'll find that. And once again, I want to say thank you, Kenyatta, for being on here, and I want to thank you for being very timely on the preparation and just us getting this together. I mean, that speaks volumes, because a lot of times people in general want to do certain things or be a part of something, but then when it comes to being prompt and being ready, it's just always they start moonwalking, and it was only one person that was the greatest at that. So let him rest, and we have to make sure we keep moving forward, and we stay focused on what it is that we're doing. And when the opportunity comes, you're ready and you're focused, because
Yeah.
sometimes people miss out because they're just not prepared. But again, I want to say thank you so much. And until next time, everyone, this has been another edition of the Mind of Ivry podcast. Make sure you all stay rich in mind everywhere you go. Until next time, peace.
Going, hey, and if it don't stop me, I'ma keep going and going and going. With life full of twists and turns, I'm already knowing. I'm knowing. If it don't stop me, I'ma keep going now. Going. With life full of twists and turns, I'm already knowing. I'm knowing.